Hello and welcome to game 3 against Orange Person. So here's our kingdom, Tomb, so you get a lot of reward for trashing. And it looks like a kingdom where you want to control the experiment pile. Experiment is the only source of draw. You could draw with Festival and Lackeys, but that's not increasing your hand size. It'll just get you through the deck, which is an important distinction to keep in mind. Experiment actually increases your hand size. I think you can control the experiment pile with a combination of buy from Festival and gain from Engineer. So this is the thought process going on for me here. So we'll see how best we can do that. Ideally, you want to have control over 6 experiments. So you kind of want your engineer to function as paddock, so to speak. Anyway, so opening with engineer is reasonable. Orange person probably has same kind of idea as me to try and control the experiment pile. So they open with an engineer on 2 coins. So they had a 5-2, but they don't choose to use it as a 5-2. I get a clerk. That is a new card as well. I think this is also in prosperity, is a softer ghost ship. And orange person goes lookout engineer. I go for scrap and clerk. Okay, so I went for clerk. Look, I went for clerk. I know I talk about the engineer, but clerk is soft ghost ship, and Mr. Donald X killed my ghost ship, so I need some, to cope with my withdrawal in some way here. So this is why I bought the clerk. Not necessarily because it's a good opening, but because I need to cope. Okay, scrap for orange person on turn 3. I get to 5, which is going to be a festival. The buy is important for the experiment pile control. Here comes their lookout, and here comes their engineer as well. So you do have choices with engineer. They could choose to trash. They don't choose to trash. They just took the experiments, passed it back to me here. Okay, scrap and estate. Usually you want horses with this. I do want a horse with this. I don't need any money. I don't need the silver here. Because I already bought a festival and I have a clerk. Those serve as silvers. I choose to draw instead, just to cycle and pick up my first engineer here. Okay, so here comes orange person's engineer. Pick up back some experiments. They get a clerk of their own. I get up to 2 lackeys. A few lackeys are fine in the deck. I think. Plus, it'll help alleviate some terminal collision if it comes up. What I am behind in right now is trashing though. Orange person has the lookout and the scrap. I just have the scrap. Here comes the clerk, forcing a top deck. They get a festival of their own. Alright, so clerk can be non-terminal if you have it in your hand. It just comes out of your hand, which is a cute effect. This scrap is sad without the estate, but we still trash anyway. It's still worth it, I think. And I get a lookout myself here. So I think lookout plus scrap should do the trick here. A couple more experiments for orange person and the lackeys for them as well. Alright, so I will also hold on to my engineer. And I pick up a second engineer here. Now, that is questionable. Maybe it's not that bad. I didn't think it was that bad. And maybe it still isn't that bad. But you'll see why I think it's questionable as the game progresses here. So here comes the clerk. Forces me to top deck. Orange person scraps a copper. Buys more experiments. I gain a horse of this scrapped estate and an action so that I can play this lackeys into the lookout. Good lookout there for me, and I pick up another lackeys. Like I said, a few of these are fine. Plus, you could always scrap them later. It's not a big deal. A little bit sad to see the clerk on this hand. It makes the lookout a little scarier because I have to top deck something good. And here, alright, orange person does something interesting. They trash the experiment. Now, that's not something I expected them to do because they have been holding on to their experiment engineers. Sorry, for most of the game. But they didn't do it here, and I'm not sure why. I mean, they'll probably buy back an engineer. They do it right away. Look at this. You see? Stupid clerk. I trash the lackey's most expendable member. And I finish off the experiments with my engineer. Pick up a second festival. I think I'm good for festivals for now until I have the deck under control. Right. So I'm not sure why they trashed the engineer. Maybe that's good. I mean, you do get the point, right? But then you do have to buy it back, which costs money. So I'm not sure. I didn't really consider the lines in which you trash your engineer and then buy it back for this whole game, really. I kept my engineers as workshops effectively, very static. I didn't consider like trashing them for me would happen near the end of the game when I want to get points off Tomb. But to me, they are way too valuable because they help control the experiment pile. And I don't want to have to keep spending money over and over to buy them. But here you see, look at the play here, right? So my opponent trashed to potentially deny me experiments, which I could see as being a reasonable line of thought, you know? Clerk comes out, forces the top deck. I only return one experiment here. I could play this. I think I do play it, yeah, to try to draw deeper into the deck. And I do actually find an engineer here, which is good. Don't trash this engineer. And okay, so this is a good sign for me in that the deck is coming together a little bit. I still have quite a few copper, unfortunately. And I trade away one of those coppers into a silver. I don't know if that was good or not, but I did it. Hooray. Okay, so here are the experiments for orangeperson. Remember, they gained a heap of them by trashing engineer. Their deck is thinner than mine, clearly. That is what happens when you buy the lookout earlier. This is a sad top deck, but I could at least play. Well, I have to actually play the lookout first here because I would like to top deck something nice with the lookout and then draw into it with the lackeys. Unfortunately, I had to top deck a scrap there. So another play of trashing engineer to gain 4 experiments there from orangeperson. Scrap comes out, trashes a copper from their hand. I think that is the last copper. They gain a lackeys for some villagers and a silver. So they didn't actually replace their engineer there. So I'm just trying to keep track of how many engineers we each have because that experiment pile is critical to control. Now it's starting to get empty, right? And I need the draw. I do need the draw. Another festival and lackeys for me here. Seems fine, but the piles are becoming thin. You do have to consider it a little bit. Lackeys are cheap, can run, especially with engineers around just for festivals left. Alright, so my opponent has their deck organized at this point. 13 and 4 buys for them. So let's see how they build from here. They do have, no, they have no engineers actually. So you see, look, this deck state that they are in, they can easily add engineers into this deck state, right? And then the engineers will function like paddocks, gain the experiments, and then they'll be good to go at this point. My deck state is more scrappy. I do have the engineers, right? And I've had it for maybe longer than they've had their engineers, but my deck isn't under control to the point to which I'm playing both engineers every turn, which is why I said at the beginning I felt like my second engineer was premature. Maybe I should have waited until my deck was in a state similar to what you see in front of you now before going after that second engineer. That's not clear to me even now looking at this replay. So they go for festival lackeys and they just straight buy the experiments at this point. So instead of using the engineers to control the pile, they are using the buys of the festival to control the pile, which is fair, completely fair, reasonable choice. Reasonable choice there from them. I think a little more now about trashing this engineer because I've seen how well it's worked out for them, orangeperson. Whether I should grab the last 2 experiments. I choose not to. I'll just continue scrapping these coppers out the deck slowly. I can buy the experiment here and I go for another scrap. I think that's fine. Second scrap in the deck is great with the lackeys, great with the tomb. So we'll see how best we can utilize that scrap. Okay, so junk free deck. The scrap will trash their lookout at this point, I believe. No longer necessary. Plus, they can get a horse for that lookout. Yeah. Oh, they trash our lackeys. Maybe they already trashed the lookout. Yeah. Scrap the lackeys, gain a silver instead. All the while gaining points with tomb along the way. They have 5 more tomb points than I do, which could be important considering we are close to the end game here. Alright, 17 and 5 buys. And they probably go for something like double experiment at minimum. It's not clear what else they go for though. I think here they do try to put themselves in a position where they can 3-pile. So they are thinking about that. So yeah, there goes some number of lackeys. They probably just had to calculate how many buys and gains I had. No experiments for them. But they do gain an engineer here. Out comes the clerk from my hand. Forces our top deck. Play this lookout. These lookouts are very scary to play, but I'm behind and I have to play them and they have to trash for me to come back into the game reasonably. And now I am in that position that orange person was in a couple turns ago. My deck is completely clean. And I now have the 2 engineers to help control the experiment pile. I scrapped my scrap. It's probably a mistake. Should have scrapped the silver if I wanted to scrap anything. Anyways, I scrapped the scrap. I used both my engineers to gain experiments. This is the game state I was looking for. And I also green here. Because I am scared. I'm not sure if they can 3-pile or not. At this point, I didn't go for the estate here because the estate doesn't matter. If they can 3-pile, it involves trashing an engineer. And the points don't matter at this point. They'll probably scrap something and trash an engineer just to gain the points advantage over an estate. So the estate wasn't preventing any 3-pile. Just choose to get a silver instead. Maybe I should have replaced the scrap at that point. Anyways, they don't draw through that deck because they had no experiments. Now they do. They go for a province. And at this point, here's where the decks start to fall apart, where we start to include all these stop cards, these green stop cards in province and duchy, for example. So the deck, this is actually a completely different phase of the game, to be honest. All the building now is complete, and this is really an extensive and long greening process at this point here. Now, I have this clerk that I want to play, not only because Ghost Ship is the best card in the game and it didn't deserve the treatment that it did deserve, but because the top deck attack is relevant, actually. They didn't draw their deck last turn. If I could make that even more difficult, I'll be happy to accommodate. And I choose to trash the engineer here. A little miscalculation for me here because I thought I could go Humble Castle, Crumbling Castle, then buy castles costing 5 and 6 to force them to top deck even more. But I calculated like a fool. And I felt like I didn't have the terminal space anymore to support the engineer. But that's wrong, I feel. And I can't get any more festivals. Anyways, I surrender my engineer there. So now I only have the 1. We'll see how that works out. And I'm going after the castles now, digging at duchy. They did not pick up any castles that turn. Instead, they don't want to show the 6-cost castle to me. That's a top deck castle. Bad castle. Causes problems castle. Alright, so I gain a province to gain points lead. And because of that points lead, now I can attack these piles, I feel. So I do go for lackeys here. I only have the 1 villager. And I could use some draw. Maybe as a potential scrap target. We'll see. Alright, so they do see quite a few cards here. Lots of festivals and lackeys. They opt to trigger the shuffle here, and I thought they had a bad deck now that they triggered the shuffle. I saw a lot of festivals and lackeys, so I thought, okay, well, what's left has to be garbage, right? So I was a little happy about that. And maybe I could even capitalize on that, right? By pushing the piles a little bit. Because I don't think they could do anything significant on this turn. Their engineer gains more experiments. And they are thinking about trashing their engineer here. I don't think they do. But I'm not entirely sure. Here, so they could go for castle 5, castle 6 there. But they opt instead for province and gold. They instead opt for province and gold. So they probably just want the game to be over and done with via the provinces. I am saying no, I don't want that to happen because I'm going through the castles. Please wait until I get through all the castles. Then you can, empty the provinces. Okay, so we do finally see enough money here to go for castle 5, castle 6. We force the top deck, which I think is very helpful. Again, pour one out for ghost ship. And it does stunt their draw here, which is good. That was the desired effect. Just pick up some experiments, pass it back. Clerk comes out to further stunt their draw. I somehow have money for opulent castle. So we'll take it, maintaining our points lead. All these castles are good for me. The more castles you have is the better for you. I could take the province here, right? I could take the province. It's more points and it pushes the game closer to an ending. But I chose not even for opulent. What's wrong with me? I wanted some experiments apparently, so I went for duchy experiment. Not sure why I didn't go for opulent or province there. That seems wrong what I did. Okay, so at least 8 for orangeperson. Here's the engineer. Gains a couple faithful hounds. I'm not sure why. It's probably scrap targets, honestly. And they gain a province. They're short a double province. Double province there. I mean, maybe they wouldn't go for it. But it's nice to have the option, It's nice to be asked sometimes. More faithful hounds and a duchy for them. So then now they swing back the points lead in their favor. Festival into lackeys draws me into 8. I could take the province, but that seems like madness. So I now take the opulent castle and I pass it back to them. They do draw quite a bit with their lackeys, but they surrender some villagers to do so. Scraps a faithful hound as we expected. Clerk forces me to top deck. They take sprawling castle, which is a lot of points for them, but I mean, whatever. I don't think I was getting all the castles anyway. All right, so here I could draw on, right? I could draw on, but I choose to stop and use the money to pick up the Grand Castle, revealing King's Castle. So they could pick up King's Castle if they want. And the reason why I didn't draw on there, okay, I wasn't sure if I would draw into money, first of all, but also in these 9 cards, now 4 cards, is the small castle, is a way to gain King's Castle easily. And if I gain King's Castle, that is a heap of points. A heap of points. Right? And I don't think they could get double province to finish the game. They could get King's Castle and take away that points from me, which is probably the play to make. They don't have money for King's Castle. Instead, they just opt to build up with a load of experiments. 50-50 to find a small castle. And small castle is in the bottom 2 cards of the deck. Now, let's pause and count a little bit. If I had the small castle, trash it to gain King's Castle, I would have had 6 castles, I believe. I would be missing small because I trashed it, and the one orange person picked up, so I would have had 6, which means King's Castle is worth plus 12, right? And I think small castle is worth 2 points. So I would have lost that 2 points, gained 1 from 2. So it would have been a plus 11 play on small castle alone. And I could have bought maybe a duchy, maybe an estate, right? So that would put me, what, 12 points ahead, 14 points ahead, which is a lot of points ahead. But I don't see it, so I have to settle instead for a pair of estates of the engineer and a duchy and estate of the festival plus buy, and just hope that next there is a next turn for me and I can play my small castle, get king's castle, then there'll only be one duchy left. Hopefully my failing deck could put together enough coins to get me that final duchy to win. So we set ourselves up to end the game. I was at 58, I believe there. Let's go back a little bit. Yeah, I was at 58, right? So let's go forward now to their turn. They actually have a monster of a turn here. And they get up to 19 and some number of buys. So that is an easy win for them in this situation. Here's the small castle. Yeah, 2 points for the small castle. So 19 and yeah, just 19, right? So that's double province estate for them. That is plus 13 for them. I may have been able to go plus 14 on them if I saw that small castle in time. So I felt a little bit hard done by this one here, but that's how it goes sometimes. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.